Story 1. Cremation. Don't waste money burying me. It only makes the cemetery rich. I'm not going to be there. Burials in my area start at $18,000 for an ordinary coffin. Cremation is about $4,000. Story 2. Dress me in a Superman costume and fling my corpse from an airplane over Manhattan. Story 3. If anyone aspires to attend medical school and needs a cadaver for learning purposes, I am available. Not yet, but someday. Story 4. This is a good question to think about. I would want to be cremated and have my ashes scattered in a national park or another natural place that I love. It feels more freeing than being buried in the ground, and I think it is a good way to give back to the earth. What about you? Story 5. Strip it to the bone, wire in some animatronics, get me a top hat and cane, and spring-load me into a coffin with a non-stop loop of, "Hello, my baby. Hello, my honey. Hello, my ragtime gal." Ready to start? Story 6. I really do not care what is done with it. If someone wants to arrange a proper burial, I hope they choose the least expensive option. Funerals are not for the dead. They are for the living. I do not need a satin-lined coffin. Story 7. I want a green burial. I would like my body placed in a biodegradable bag or container, with an apple tree planted on top. If it can overlook a waterway, even better. I want to feed the tree and have the tree feed people and animals. It may seem strange to some, but I like the idea of living on as a tree that will give back for as long as it stands. I practice paganism and witchcraft and see a lot of beautiful symbolism in it. Maybe I can haunt a forest. Story 8. I would like to donate my brain to science to help advance epilepsy research. I want the rest of my organs donated for medical use. I wish I could specify who can receive them. For example, I would not want my liver to be given to an alcoholic. Story 9. Please donate my body to science. If any of my organs can be used for transplant, that is fine. One of the most informative days of my nursing education was the optional cadaver lab, and I would be very happy if my body could be similarly helpful for others. I realize I will not notice, but the thought of having one last positive impact makes me happy. When the work is finished and the remains are cremated, I hope someone remembers me and does something meaningful with the ashes, so I am not forgotten immediately. Story 10. The never-ending line to pay respects. Then the shrine, of course. I'll forgo the library. No one goes there anymore. Story 11. I told my wife that I want my remains scattered at one of my favorite places, but I do not want to be cremated. Story 12. When I am gone, I want my organs to give someone else a chance at life. Story 13. I will probably donate my organ, but I want to be buried standing up. Story 14. I want to be cremated and scattered in a place I enjoyed. I do not want to be a forgotten stone in a field somewhere. Story 15. I am not putting that kind of provision in any legal document. Do whatever you want with it. Burn it or put it in a box. It is fine by me because I will be dead. Story 16. Sit with my body for 24 hours during a wake. Wrap it in a clean cotton cloth, bury it, and plant a tree on top. I just need something dignified, environmentally friendly, and inexpensive. Alternatively, a very simple burial at sea. Feed me to the fishes. Story 17. Bury me in the dirt, naked on a hill, and plant a tree over me. Let worms and insects return my body to the earth to feed the tree. Story 18. The cheapest and easiest disposal. The last thing I want is for my children to be saddled with the expense and drama of burying me. I want them to use their inheritance for themselves. Get me cremated and disposed of. Story 19. I would prefer a green burial, but I will leave the decision to my child. They may choose a gravestone to visit, ashes on the fireplace, a tree planted over me, and so on. Story 20. Cremation. 1. Family should save the money. 2. Direct my family to spread my ashes in at least one place. Barcelona, Spain. I am from the United States. Barcelona was one of the cities I visited on my first international trip. My wife and I are young and have no children. The plan has always been to travel to at least 3 countries before we have children. Two remain. I hope that when we have children, we pass down this lifestyle so they can experience it themselves. I want our children to travel and experience different cultures and cuisines. If giving them my ashes gives them more reason to travel, that would fulfill and exceed my hope. Story 21. I truly do not care. I just hope whoever is left does not waste a lot of money on a burial and a big funeral. It will not make me any less dead. Laughing out loud. Story 22. Take whatever someone else can use, burn the rest, and, if possible, send it into outer space. Story 23. Biodegradable urn under a tree or mushroom coffin. I would like something good to come from me, maybe a fruit tree. Story 24. My wife and I are to be cremated and mixed with the ashes of our baby girl who died. I do not know. Story 25. When my husband died, his mother, who was later diagnosed with dementia, argued with me about whether he should be buried in the state where he was born or near me. I ended the argument by having him cremated. It cost $279. I gave her half the ashes. She paid about $8,000 to bury them next to his grandparents, and I kept the other half in a nice urn that cost $70 at my home. I believe funeral homes exploit grief, using guilt to push expensive caskets, viewings, and services. My mother-in-law paid a lot for the funeral service in his home state, while I paid a $250 rental fee for a local church for his memorial. I considered hiring clergy, but the lowest fee I found was $350 for 15 minutes. His close friends gave the eulogy, and his brother-in-law made a beautiful video that we showed at the memorial. People who attended both services told me mine felt more like him than the over-the-top display the funeral home persuaded my mother-in-law to choose. They even convinced her to buy a $5,000 casket for his ashes. Felt exploitative. Story 26. Covered in flammable material, placed in a small wooden boat, pushed out into a large body of water, and set ablaze by a flaming arrow from shore. If that fails, set on fire or dropped into the ocean. Story 27. Donate to science. It may help researchers find a cure for a disease. Story 28. I will be cremated, and my remains will be placed on the lake on my property in a boat that I built. Then my oldest child will shoot a flaming arrow into the boat. The cremation is to avoid a mess, and there will be additional flammable materials on the boat as a backup. Story 29. I'd be through with it. I don't know, maybe target practice. I just wish I could watch. Story 30. I am donating my body to science because I believe it is the right thing to do. I hope future doctors can use it to find cures and ways to prevent diseases and illnesses. Story 31. I do not really care as long as I can donate my tattoos to that creepy museum in Japan. Story 32. I want my funeral to be held in a large room with a huge ceiling fan. This will be important later. I want it to be a heartfelt ceremony. When they open my casket for viewing, I will not be there. Loud music starts playing. Sweet victory. The ceiling fan turns on with my body attached, and I swing in circles around the room for the duration of the song. Story 33. Turn me into dust and scatter it on my grandparents' farm where I grew up. Story 34. Cremate me. No one is going to remember me 100 years from now anyway. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. If you are thinking about harming yourself or are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number now. If you are in the United States or Canada, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you're elsewhere, contact your local emergency services or a crisis line. If you can, consider reaching out to someone you trust or a mental health professional. Are you safe right now? I'm here to listen. Story 35. Sprinkle me around my favorite campgrounds. Also, do not cremate me. Story 36. I want to be buried in the same coffin as my wife. If that is not possible, I want our ashes mixed together in an urn, sealed permanently, and placed where the sun will rise and set on us every day. Story 37. I want my remains to be scattered from an airplane flying over Disney. I do not want to be cremated. Story 38. I'm going into space. Nothing is cooler than having your body discover what your brain never could. Story 39. The Frank Reynolds Method. Story 40. I will be buried in a makeshift cowboy-style coffin. I'd prefer unsanded, untreated wood with gaps in the paneling. Story 41. Cremate me and scatter my ashes anywhere. Do not keep me in an urn for someone to have to worry about. I do not want to take up space on this earth forever or have my immediate family worry about visiting or placing flowers on my grave. After one generation, almost no one will remember, so it is silly to take up real estate. Story 42. Simple cremation mixed with my wife's ashes when she passes away and scattered. Story 43. Personally, I do not care. My belief is when I am dead, I am gone. My body is an empty wine bottle. Cut me up and reuse me, bury me or melt me. The vessel no longer matters to the wine that has been consumed. I have told my daughter that I kind of like the idea of being returned to the soil to feed a tree or fired into a stone, but it really does not matter. I said whatever will bring her the most peace is what she should do. Just know that I do not want any unnecessary funds spent. Any funeral is for the living to grieve. If you did not honor me when I was alive, doing so when I am dead does nothing for me. Story 44. Wrap my body in fungus to speed decomposition and help turn it into useful fertilizer. Plant my wrapped corpse under a living plant, such as a tree, a bush, or a vine. Story 45. Give all my useful parts to those who can use them. Burn the rest. Story 46. Cremate my body and spread my ashes where my beloved pets are buried or where my family is buried. Either is fine, but do not leave me in an urn on someone's bookshelf. Story 47. Use me as a prop in a movie. I would prefer to be Spider-Man. Story 48. I would like to be cremated and have my ashes scattered in the field where I sometimes went with my grandfather. But I also do not mind being buried in a grave. Story 49. I am happy for my organs to go to those who need them, and for any remaining tissue to be used for medical training, art supplies, or cat food as required. Story 50. Harvest my organs and tissues, then place my body on a body farm so it can be used to further forensic science. Story 51. Donate my body to science, or have my ashes scattered at the beach. Story 52. I am an organ and skeleton donor, so I suppose I will be scrapped for parts. Story 53. Ideally, I would be buried with a tree. Why cry next to a stone when you can read under my shade? Story 54. I want my family to scatter my ashes at all our favorite places. I prefer to be cremated or otherwise disposed of so my survivors do not have to pay for land none of us will actually use. Story 55. I want a mushroom coffin and to be buried under a tree in a quiet forest where hardly anyone goes. Alternatively, a biotechnology bed with fungal neural connections to the metaverse that maintains hermetic life functions indefinitely, located deep in the Arctic in a secure data center. Story 56. I am being cremated and my ashes will be sent to Fort Indiantown Gap near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I am proud of my time in the United States Army and how it changed me and helped me grow up. Story 57. I tell people to bury me as cheaply as possible. The legality of it is on you. You could dump my body in a ditch for all I care. I am dead. Story 58. I want to be cremated so I am not taking up valuable space with my body and casket. Story 59. I want my skull removed, cleaned, and given to my daughter. The rest of my body can be ground up and cremated. Story 60. I have already donated my body to science. The local teaching hospital will come and pick me up when I am gone. Story 61. Mine is already going to science. No disposal costs on whatever estate I leave. Story 62. No embalming, wrapped in a decomposable shroud, and placed in the earth in a pine box with holes drilled in it. Those are my wishes, but it will ultimately be up to my wife, children, or grandchildren. Story 63. I would like to be buried directly in the soil, to be consumed by insects and become part of the soil. That is illegal for understandable reasons, so I will be cremated. Story 64. Biocremation, also known as alkaline hydrolysis, dissolves the body in a solution of lye and water, producing a higher quality fertilizer than flame cremation, which burns off much of the nitrogen. It also has a lower carbon footprint. Story 65. If possible, donate my organs. If composting is available, choose composting. Otherwise, cremate me. Choose the least expensive option. Story 66. Use me as a prop. Hang out with cute girls until my body rots, unless they have me stuffed. Story 67. It would be nice to have my ashes incorporated into a coral reef structure or planted with a tree seed. I would probably choose the latter because I have thalassophobia. Story 68. I donated my entire body to science. Let them have a field day. Story 69. Let them turn me into dust and plant me with a mango tree. Story 70. Cremate me, and put a little of me in a chili so I can tear my wife's ass up one more time if I ever marry again. Story 71. A big funeral pyre. A gold coin on each of my eyes and one in my mouth, because I do not know if the river Styx has raised its prices. I will need an old priest, a young priest, a rabbi, and a Native American shaman to each perform funerary rites in their own traditions. A giant marble statue carved in my likeness, pointing toward the rising sun, will be placed where my pyre once stood. Why? Because Valhalla awaits. Story 72. I want to donate my organs if possible. I would prefer a green burial to give back to the earth, but it is too expensive and not affordable for me. I will most likely choose cremation. I do not want money wasted on a coffin and a burial plot. Story 73. Taxidermy propped up in the living room a la Brian Ritchie of Violent Femmes. I would be smiling all day and scaring burglars away. Either that or partially cremated. Story 74. I told my daughter to shop around for the cheapest cremation, put the ashes in a free Ziploc bag, and make sure they do not charge by the pound. A flat rate is the way to go for my body. Story 75. I want my body donated to a university lab so those nerds can see what a perfect ass looks like at least once in their lives. Story 76. If I had the funds, I would cremate it and turn it into a gemstone. I find that funny. As a backup, I would choose an orange tree. An orange is my favorite fruit. Story 77. Burial at sea. Do not cremate me. Take me out a few miles. Ensure the depth is over 600 feet and lower me, or what is left of me, into the water. Story 78. I am looking for a practical archaeologist who wants to try a full-on Egyptian mummification ritual, or an avant-garde artist who would like to laminate me for an installation piece. Either option would be fine. Otherwise, cremate me to dust and scatter the ashes to the wind. Story 79. I want to be planted in a tree, or be thrown in the garbage. Whatever is cheaper. Story 80. Still debating. No one would visit if I went to the family plot, but I do not want to be cremated either. Story 81. I've always chosen cremation, but I don't love the pollution it produces. I've seriously considered alkaline hydrolysis, where the body is liquefied with water because it is more eco-friendly, but it kind of grosses me out. I know I will be dead either way, so the grossness shouldn't matter, but it does. It's my body, so I can feel that way. I hope that by the time I become more comfortable with the idea of death, I will accept alkaline hydrolysis for its environmental benefits. For now, cremation is included in my final wishes if I die suddenly before I decide about hydrolysis. Story 82. I told my children to cremate me and not to bother picking up my ashes. Story 83. Even before I die, I'd like to be put in a spacesuit and flung in a random direction into space until I most likely suffocate. It's not the best death, but the view would be good, and maybe some aliens will find me someday and revive me. Story 84. Personally, I would like my remains to be made into a casserole that my friends and family can enjoy while sitting around listening to Pink Floyd and remarking on how awesome I was. Story 85. Would chipper with a large quantity of native wildflower seeds. Give back what I took. Story 86. It should be turned into a Halloween decoration because being a tree or becoming ashes is lame. Story 87. Drag my carcass into a field and let the wild animals feed. Story 88. If my organs are suitable for donation, please donate them. Otherwise, cremate me and place my ashes in a peaceful, beautiful setting. Story 89. Literally just throw me unceremoniously into the woods and let nature take its course. I'm really sorry you're feeling this way. Are you in immediate danger or thinking about hurting yourself? If so, please call your local emergency number right now, for example, 988 in the United States. If you can, consider contacting someone you trust or a crisis line. In the UK, call Samaritans at 116 123. If you're elsewhere, contact local emergency services or a local crisis hotline. Befrienders worldwide can help you find one. I can stay with you here and help find local resources or someone to talk to. Would you like that? Story 90. Cremation? I do not want to be thrown into a grave. Bury me somewhere nice. Story 91. World's most traumatic piñata. No, better taxidermy me and put me in someone else's first-class seat on an airplane. Hold on. I can do better. I did not even think about parting out this junker for craft projects. Think of the planters and sun catchers you could make. They dazzle my nipples and make Christmas decorations. The vertebrae alone could make great earrings. Story 92. I want to be cremated after I die. I don't care much about other details, but cremation is important to me. Story 93. The Viking Way. Place my body on a raft, set it on fire, and send it out to sea. Story 94. Whatever is cheapest and causes the least hassle for whoever cares enough to do something with my body. Story 95. This is a loaded question, original poster. My partner used to joke that when he dies, he wants his body placed into a giant slingshot contraption and launched into France. Don't ask. I don't know what I even want yet. It's weird. I didn't think I would even make it to my 16th birthday. And now I am 23 and I surprise myself every day. Dealing with mortality on a daily basis like that makes me afraid of how serious it all is, to be honest. So I'll give you an unserious answer that I will probably write in my will when I get to that point. Make me into some kind of artwork. Semi-serious, actually, but it would have to be by an artist I love, and I don't even know if you can legally do that. Make me into a taxidermied human. Stuff me with filling, give me interchangeable eyes, and dress me in interesting clothes and makeup, like a kind of disturbing, life-sized Barbie doll. I don't know, man. As long as I die surrounded by people who love me, they can do whatever they want with my body. Story 96. For a long time I said I wanted to be cremated and have my brothers mix my ashes with non-dairy creamer for a big stage explosion. Like the Mythbusters creamer cannon. I want a fireworks show with the big finale being me. Recently, I learned that people of a certain size are not cremated because they can drip too much fat and start a fire in the cremation chamber. So now I want to be fired from a real cannon and splattered across the hillside. If that isn't possible, I want to be blown up like that whale in Oregon. Story 97. If parts are fit for donation, give them away. If not, do whatever will be most useful. Turn me into a crash test dummy for all I care, and then compost the rest. If composting is not legal in my state by the time I die, cremate me and scatter my ashes at the family beach. Story 98. Have me taxidermied and outfitted with animatronic mechanisms, so I can be used as a moving Halloween decoration on someone's lawn. If that is not an option, cremate me and scatter my ashes to the wind along with my cat's ashes. Story 99. I want to donate my organs because not everyone has the privilege of healthy organs. Story 100. Turn me into a haunted heirloom given to the least favorite young family member. They cannot get rid of me either because my will requires them to keep it for a number of years to receive a large sum of money or because I keep teleporting back. Story 101. I am an organ donor, so donation would come first. Then whatever remains. Ideally, I want to be buried in a burial park where they wrap the body in biodegradable fabric, bury it at an optimal depth, and plant a tree on top. I do not want to harm the environment after I die, and I want to be part of the Earth's natural life and death cycle as much as possible. Realistically, funerals and burials are for the living. If my wife cannot afford a luxury natural burial, she may do as she pleases. I do not feel the need for a funeral. They can be an expensive ceremony that adds stress to people who are already grieving. She should do whatever will help her feel best after my passing. Story 102. Cremate me, mix my ashes with those of my late wife, and scatter them in a peaceful place so we can haunt it together. Story 103. I would like my body dragged up to just below the summit of Mount Everest with my hands showing a thumbs up. Story 104. I do not give a fuck. Do not spend thousands of dollars on a worthless coffin from funeral home operators. Let my corpse feed other animals like every other life form on this planet. Throw me in the ocean, drop me in a river, or leave me in the desert. We are not special. Story 105. I have signed up to be an organ donor for when I die, so hopefully some of my organs can be used by others. I want the least expensive cremation and to have my ashes placed in an unmarked grave at our local cemetery. Story 106. I want to be donated to science. Put me in a body farm to catch murderers. Crash me in a car. Cut my head off and practice plastic surgery on me. Story 107. I want a water cremation, actually more like being dissolved in lye. It is more eco-friendly than burial or cremation. It still leaves bones, which are crushed and placed in an urn. Because my husband wants a grave, I do too so he can visit. Story 108. I want to be cremated and have my remains dispersed in small quantities into pepper shakers at Denny's restaurants throughout the United States. Story 109. I honestly think I will donate to a medical school. They have to practice on someone. Story 110. Cremate me. Don't put me on the mantle. Illegally dump my ashes somewhere on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. I'm gone. Do what you like, respectfully. I plan to have other things to do. Story 111. Cremate me in the cheapest way possible. I do not care about the ashes. They rarely come from a single body anyway. My dead body is an empty vessel, a gross, hollow sack of meat. Turn me into dog food for all I care. Story 112. Assuming I die, I want to be buried head downward, wrapped in silver chains with the words "We pray the earth to keep you" this time engraved in the chains in at least 20 different languages. Mostly to fuck with future historians. Story 113. Donate all my organs, give my body to science, and arrange a green burial. Story 114. I've known for years. I want all my usable organs donated to science or to other people. I'm a big believer in hand-me-downs. Then I want my chest cavity hollowed out, taken to the Badlands or wherever you can legally detonate things, filled with explosives and fireworks, and detonated with as much fanfare and celebration as possible. The 1812 Overture, an open bar, free psychedelics, a mini Burning Man. I want to leave behind a legend. Story 115. You know, as much as I have thought about my death, I never cared what my family would do with my body. I like my husband's idea. He wants to be cremated and have his ashes placed in a vinyl record. Story 116. I don't really care about my body. I just want my family to remember me. It's more like Coco for me. Story 117. Load me into a rocket and send me into deep space or the sun. Story 118. What I want is not yet legalized in my country, which makes me grumpy to think about it. I would like to be composted, also known as terramation. There are a few states in the United States where this has been legalized, and it looks promising. No chemicals are needed. The process involves a few months in a sealed container with organic materials such as straw and wood chips. After a final grinding of the bones, the result is nutrient-rich soil. It is by far the most environmentally friendly option. I believe the United Kingdom government has started a public consultation, so maybe I just need to wait until it is legalized here. Story 119. I told my wife to throw me into the woods and let nature take its course. Too bad it is not legal. I am dead. Do not waste money on what is left. Laughing out loud. Story 120. I'm weird in that I want a traditional casket and to be buried with my body mostly whole. I don't know why it matters since I'm dead. But I guess I never liked the idea of cremation. Story 121. Shot into space but probably too expensive, so a hole in the backyard will do. Story 122. My wife will take my ashes and make a piece of jewelry she can wear to remember me. Story 123. Cremation. Spread my ashes in the Rocky Mountains by Banff National Park on a beach in Mexico, and, if you are really daring, a little in the graveyard at the Haunted Mansion, preferably the one in Florida, as it is the park I visited most. Story 124. Dig a hole and place my body directly in the ground for reclamation. Do not use a box, do not use fancy gizmos, and definitely do not cremate me. Story 125. I want to be cremated and made into diamonds for my kids. Story 126. After recently burying both of my parents, one had chosen cremation and the other a traditional burial. I am choosing cremation. The total cost of cremation was over $5,000 less than a traditional burial, which means less expense for my family. Story 127. I could not give a shit. I will be dead and will have no need for it at that point. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. If you are thinking about harming yourself, please consider reaching out to someone you trust or a mental health professional. If you are in immediate danger, call your local emergency number or a crisis hotline. In the United States, dial 988. Story 128. I'm not criticizing, but many people who donate their bodies to science think they will be used for noble research into curing disease and so on. Some donated bodies are sent to nearby military bases to test how new weapons affect the human body. Donating bodies to science is not always as noble or dignified as people assume. Just cremate me and scatter my ashes in the river. Story 129. Buried in a spore suit that will rapidly decompose my corpse. Story 130. Each loved one receives a body piece they must care for. Like the fake baby used in high school parenting classes. Continues forever. Story 131. I was cremated, the metal was recovered, and the ashes were scattered just west of the high tide takeoff. I did it for a friend in 2019, so hopefully someone will step up and paddle what remains of me out to the reef. Story 132. I can still donate my organs before my corpse goes to the body farm. Story 133. Do whatever is best for the environment. I do not honestly care what happens to it because I am not there. Story 134. I've told my mom I want to be turned into a tree, although my cat will probably eat me first. Story 135. I would like my brain to be preserved so I can hopefully wake up again. Story 136. I want any usable organs to be donated to people who need them because I do not need them. Story 137. Wrap me in a cotton or wool blanket, throw me in a hole, and bury me. Let me be worm food. Take my organs first so others who need them can use them. Story 138. Choose the least expensive option. Any assets I leave behind should go to the people I actually care about, not the funeral industry. Story 139. No embalming. Put me in a natural fiber sack, dig a hole, place me inside, and plant a tree on top. That tree will contain part of me, and my family can visit it. After about 50 years, bury a new body and plant another tree in the same spot. By then, anyone who knew me will be gone. Story 140. I want someone to remove my skin and preserve my tattoos, then donate the rest to science. Story 141. As an American, I know no one will spread my ashes in my favorite place in China. It was the only place I was ever truly happy. Story 142. A frozen glass coffin like Snow White's. I want a slumber party at my grave because I do not want to sleep there by myself for the first night. Story 143. When I am cremated, dump the ashes in the woods near a river or lake whenever they get around to it. If that is too much trouble, just add me to the cat box. It will be fun. Story 144. I'm going to a body farm so I can decompose in the open and help solve crimes. The only cost is transporting my body, and I plan to cover that myself. I don't want my family to pay a single cent. Story 145. I don't care about my flesh. I will be in heaven with Jesus. Story 146. Aquamation, also known as water cremation or alkaline hydrolysis, seems to be the most environmentally sound method of disposal currently available. Story 147. I know I do not want a casket or a traditional Catholic funeral. Cremation is heavy on pollution. I do not want my son or family to face a large financial burden. Bury me without the extras and plant sunflowers over my grave. Story 148. Bury me next to my wife. If I do not find my wife before I die and I am still single, cremate me. Story 149. I keep telling my kids I want to be wrapped in muslin and rolled into a hole in the ground as a green burial. I want them to actually use their feet to kick me into it, and that part is important, but I don't think they take me seriously. I don't want an elaborate ceremony, and I definitely do not want any part of my estate wasted on paying a funeral home exorbitant amounts of money for a slideshow of photos set to a generic instrumental track shown on a screen in a room with ugly carpeting and bad coffee. Story 150. I would love to be launched into space so my corpse can haunt the galaxy for all time. However, I am probably just going to be buried, which is lame. Story 151. I chose cremation because I don't want to burden my family with the high cost of a funeral and a casket. Story 152. I'm getting turned into a tree and put in my kids' backyard so their kids can swing on me. Story 153. In Viking style, put me on a boat, shoot fire arrows at it, and watch me catch fire and sink. Also give me a great sword to hold. Story 154. Give away anything that can be given, and plant the rest of me in an orchard. The first thing that made me feel a little better after my dad passed away was learning from the hospital that his eyes could improve someone else's life. Being returned to the cycle of life, feeding trees that then feed us, rather than being filled with toxins and sealed in a concrete vault, feels like the right way to go on. I do not believe in an afterlife, but I do believe in the cycle of life. Will it happen? Probably not. Hopefully I have been vocal about being a donor so that will happen, but after that I am fine with whatever makes my loved ones feel better. If that means I am in a traditional grave on a mantelpiece turned into jewelry, shot into space, donated to science, or displayed in a traveling museum exhibit, so be it. Whatever they need. Story 155. My mother is from Mexico, so when she dies she wants me to scatter her ashes in the Gulf of Mexico. I think I will donate my body to science or become an organ donor, assuming I do not die of old age before then. Story 156. If I am not reduced to dust by an A-10 Thunderbolt II attack aircraft, I would like my remains to be used to grow mushrooms and a few trees. Story 157. Green burial with no chemicals. Allow the plot to remain undeveloped for the duration of decomposition. Turn me into a park and preserve the land. Story 158. Well, whatever aftercare my body receives is for the comfort of those who are left behind. I will not really have an opinion at that point. Story 159. If I have 1 or 2 children, I would send them around the world to scatter my ashes. The trip would be prepaid. I would present it as a grand gesture for me, but really it would be for them to travel and explore. Include places I have been and enjoyed and places I never got to visit, such as Triple Divide watershed points, incredible waterfalls, breathtaking views, and other notable sites. It would serve as a kind of travel bucket list. Story 160. Cremation is less expensive than burial. I will not mind. My family is already accustomed to it from previous generations. There will be no visitation, but family will be present when my ashes are buried in the family plot that dates back 100 years. Story 161. Cremated. Fuck taking up space. Graveyards are the dumbest, most selfishly human thing, and I absolutely hate the idea of them. Story 162. Cremate me. Mix my ashes with gunpowder and press them into bullets to be fired from a gun mentioned in my will. Story 163. If I could, I would have them dig a vertical hole, crack open my skull, stand me upright in the hole, and plant a tree in or above my head, laughing out loud. Story 164. Cremate me and spread my ashes at the base of some trees on my property. Story 165. About time those lazy bones were used for medical purposes, such as organ donation or fertilizer. I do not care. Story 166. I want my body to be planted with a tree bulb to nourish the tree and return my remains to the earth. Story 167. Apparently psychiatric drugs damage my organs, so I cannot donate to science. Fly me to the moon. Maybe I could donate my sperm to an alien. I don't know. Story 168. Bury me upside down so the world can kiss my ass. But seriously, cremate me and then scatter my ashes. I do not want people going to a grave to remember me. I want them to remember me alive and kicking. Story 169. Cremation. Have you ever seen a rotten body? It is disgusting. Story 170. I would like my body to be left in an area in the mountains for nature to consume. Let the earth take me back as I am. I would prefer my body to be used as nourishment rather than rotting in a casket. If I cannot have that, I would like my blood and bones to be used for art, either as paint or graphite, or by using my bones literally for decoration, like a chandelier or a macabre coat rack. I am content with pieces of me being kept in a jar as a conversation piece. Maybe even a piece of my skin could be made into genuine leather, like a pair of gloves you never tire of wearing. It makes the gothic side of my heart happy knowing I can still be with the person I love, even if it is in a very fucked up way. Story 171. I want to be frozen and launched into space, where aliens will find me, revive me, and either restore my body to perfect health or transfer my consciousness into a new alien body, Avatar style. Story 172. I am a 75-year-old man and a widower. I will be cremated and my urn will be buried in the plot I already own, next to my wife's urn. It is already arranged and paid for. Story 173. Wrap my nude body in cotton, toss me into the ground, and pile the dirt on. No coffin, no vault, no cremation, no urn. We are all carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen. Give it back to the earth. Story 174. I want to go to the body farm. It is where they study body decomposition for forensics. Indoors or outdoors, exposed or unexposed, and so on. There is one a couple of hours from our house. I told them they could sign me up for outdoor exposure so they could drive by, wave, and see what stage of decomposition I am at. Or take me to a taxidermist for a European-style full-body mount, and then they could display it at Halloween. Story 175. Donate every organ and tissue possible, then my remaining shell should be given to a body farm to naturally decompose. As a pagan, I believe that after my soul leaves my body, the shell should return to Mother Earth. No cremation or burial. Give me to science and allow me to fade back to Earth. Story 176. Incinerate all my fleshy bits, coat my skeleton in silver, give me a top hat and stand me up as a coat rack. Why? Because it would be the best family heirloom ever. Story 177. I want to be cremated and for my urn to be made of uranium glass, always resting on top of the book I found called Excuse My Dust with a black light shining on it. I love puns and uranium glass glows under a black light, and I think it would make my family smile to see the glow and the pun live forever. Story 178. If I am not unusable for whatever reason, I would like to be donated as a cadaver to a medical school. I can think of no greater honor than being used to train people to save lives. Story 179. Cremation. I spent my entire life working on burners. I should go out in one too. Story 180. Forensic forest. I would like to help science by studying decomposition to solve crimes. Story 181. I want to be cremated and my ashes scattered in various places. Years ago, when a friend of my husband and me died suddenly, we held a large wake with karaoke that went on into the night. Everyone brought alcoholic beverages, and her ashes were in a large bowl with small bottles nearby so we could each take some to scatter. Wherever we scattered her ashes, we took a picture to document it and posted it on her Facebook page. That is how I want to go. I do not want to be buried and left to decompose underground. Story 182. Harvest anything that is still of use. Do not care in any way about what happens to the rest. Story 183. I want a physical memorial where people can go to visit me. It is what I am used to when relatives in my family died. I am not sure whether I would want to be cremated, but I think so. Story 184. Take what can be used. Whatever cannot be used, I would like left to medical schools or other educational institutions that need cadavers. After that, burn it all. Story 185. I am dealing with this now because I am terminally ill. When I die, they can harvest any organs that are still usable and not affected by cancer, followed by cremation, which is cheaper and more space efficient. Story 186. I am a body donor for scientific research. My brain and spinal cord will be studied to advance research into multiple sclerosis. My body will be cremated. If no one in my family claims my remains, I will be placed in an urn and entombed in a wall with previous donors. Story 187. Choose the cheapest, most efficient, and least destructive option. Ideally composting my remains so the soil can be used to plant a tree. I don't care about preserving my body. I don't want it to take up space in a cemetery or require a large funeral. Dispose of my body and complete whatever legal steps are necessary to put my life to rest. I don't want anyone to mourn me or erect a gravestone. Life moves on. I had my turn living. Now return me to the soil. Story 188. It would be cool to lie in a wooden Viking-style boat and burn with it until it sinks to the bottom, with a chest of gold tucked under my arm. Story 189. Cremation. Separate into 3 small parts. 1 part will be given to my child or placed at my favorite church. 1 part will be scattered on the coast near my home. 1 part will be used as fertilizer beneath a large tree. Story 190. I am not too fussed. If I could choose any option regardless of cost, I would like to be buried without a coffin and have a garden planted above the ground where I rest. Story 191. Donate your body to science. My parents are doctors, and I remember them dissecting human cadavers. If local medical schools still accept donations, I would donate to them. If not, I would donate to research programs if they can make use of my body with organ donation as a backup plan. I want my body to go to a good cause. I do not want to be embalmed and buried, which can pollute water and take up space. I do not care where my ashes are scattered. I do not want anyone to have to pay for an urn. There are more practical options. Story 192. I do not care. I will be dead and will not have any idea what they do with me. If you are thinking about harming yourself or are in immediate danger, please call emergency services now. If you are in the United States, call or text 988 for confidential support. If you are elsewhere, contact your local emergency number or crisis line in your country. Consider reaching out to someone you trust or a health professional. If you want, I can help find resources in your area. Story 193. Place it in a cardboard box and incinerate. Minimal cost and ceremony. Story 194. Compost me. If you cannot do that, cremate me. Anything but being pumped with chemicals and put in a box. Story 195. I want my remains scattered at Disney World. I also do not want to be cremated. Story 196. Cremate me. I am not going to wake up underground, scratching at the lid of my coffin. Fuck that. Story 197. I want to be taken out to the ocean and released there. My family would never do that, so the best I can probably hope for is cremation or, if I'm lucky, composting. Story 198. Burn it. Throw it in a dumpster. I do not care. Story 199. I just had this conversation with family because my grandfather passed away. I am not sure. One aunt wants to be cremated and have her ashes scattered so people have a place to visit. But she feels her spirit will be more free. My other aunt wants to be visited, so she prefers burial. My grandmother wants to be cremated and kept in an urn that her children, my mother and her sibling, will share custody of. I am fine with being buried. I would like to be in the same cemetery as my best friend, although I probably will not be able to be next to her because of the cemetery layout, and by the time I die there will probably already be someone next to her. Story 200. If I could, I would like to be buried in Tunisia, my other home. I would prefer a traditional Islamic burial. Story 201. Easy cremation. I found out that funeral homes will still dig up your grave, remove your remains from the casket, and cremate them just because they need space for more plots. Story 202. I do not care since I am dead. My insurance is up to date so they can do whatever they wish. Story 203. I would like my body donated for medical research. I have had many medical issues throughout my life, and if studying my body could help advance research into any of my conditions, that would be helpful. Story 204. Donate as many organs as possible for transplants. The rest can go to science or for educational use. If any loved ones want anything, they may take a keepsake. No burial plot nonsense. We are in a housing crisis, and my bones do not need real estate. Story 205. Throw me in the bin. Don't waste the resources. I don't want my ashes kept or to be buried. Fuck it. Throw me out to sea for the fish. Story 206. I don't care. I just want to get off this forsaken planet with no chance of reincarnation whatsoever. So whatever is cheapest and easiest. Story 207. Organ donation followed by cremation. If organ donation is not possible, donate the body to a medical school. If that is not possible, consider a green burial, but that can be expensive, so the likely option is cremation and burial of the ashes in the family plot we already own. Story 208. I have an organ donor pass. They can have everything except my eyes and my heart. Cremate the rest. I do not care what happens to it. Story 209. I want my usable organs and tissues donated to benefit others, be cremated, and have my ashes scattered at places that are important to me. I firmly believe our bodies are empty vessels after death. I prefer cremation because I do not want to take up space in a graveyard. I want my ashes scattered because I am sentimental. Story 210. I want to be cremated. I refuse to become a zombie in another life. Story 211. I could not care less. Choose whatever option places the least financial burden on my loved ones. Story 212. Mix my ashes with my dog's ashes. He helped me through addiction and other struggles. He passed in 2022, and I am still grieving. I have lost close people before, but losing him has devastated not only me but also my wife. I can still smell him. Story 213. Burn it and bury it. Or donate it to science. I won't need this mortal coil anymore. Story 214. Donate any useful items. If I happen to be rich, send me into space. If not, bury my remains and maybe an oak tree will use my nutrients. Story 215. What I have told my family. First, I would prefer to donate whatever organs or parts will immediately save or make a difference in someone's life. Then I would like to be cremated. After that, please spread my ashes in a place or places that are meaningful to you or that you would like to share with me. Story 216. A Viking send-off. Place my body in a boat, set it on fire with a flaming arrow, and send me back to the sea. Story 217. I want to be canonized. Frozen, then shot out of a cannon at anyone I hate that week. Story 218. I want to be a maggot farm, a breeding ground for flies. I like bugs. Story 219. Compost it, grow mushrooms from it, and give them to my friends and loved ones so we can all go on one last trip together. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.